Hello, I'm Carolyn Holzman, and this is Confessions of an SEO. You will find Confessions a short form chat about SEO. I share my personal and professional views based on all my years as an SEO, both frontline, as a tester, and now forensic. My goal is to be to someone else what I might have liked when I was beginning to learn SEO. Ahrefs is the sponsor of this week's episode. Welcome to Season 5, Episode 38 of Confessions. This week, while not a vacation per se, it's a compressed week where I am spending time looking around the corner to test out this idea of working from anywhere. Suffice it to say, I like the view. Last week, I talked about my ongoing indexation research project. It had a birthday, and I went through some of the highlights along the way. And I've been known to call it the gift that keeps on giving because who knew running the same 3 tests every day could yield so much insight. As a reminder, on the website confessionsofanseo.com, you can always find the most recent episode. Subscribe to Confessions on whichever platform you get your podcast you haven't already. That simple act is a great way to support this podcast and help others find it. Thank you to Ahrefs, the sponsor of this episode. Use Ahrefs to build a powerful brand that dominates every search channel. You can monitor brand mentions, track competitor brand strategies, and strengthen your presence across search and AI chatbots. Sign up for Ahrefs, and remember, Ahrefs is always free to get started using it. Once a year, I do look at the list of episodes on this big, long list, growing list, I should say. After 5 years, sometimes I have to be reminded, what have I already chatted with you about? The first episode, Why I Love SEO, has pretty much maintained dominance over the years in terms of listens. The one in third place surprised me. It was the one about Google getting to keep custody of Chrome that I did a couple of weeks ago. But the one in second place, the Avis position, is one that honestly I still think about on some level frequently. It's the one I call Why I Dislike Working with SEO Clients. I'll be honest. I actually had a harsher title on the board initially. But with it being the second episode ever, I wasn't entirely comfortable using it. The idea that instead of building other people's assets to focus on building my own was born out of that particular sentiment. I'd helped so many others build their own retirements. Why not my own? As SEOs, we've been conditioned to think that there's only 2 paths to make a living in SEO. And, of course, you can work for somebody else. That's always there. I'm always thinking, independently. So you can either build your own agency and hand your life over to that drama and scope creep, or working for other agencies. Over the years, I'm going to say I've been convinced that there is another way. I mean, even before I saw it, I was convinced that even if everything else wasn't it, I knew there had to be something else, at least for me. And I'll share a little epiphany and chat about what I'm doing and then share a story about what I see as the slippery slope. A couple of weeks ago in one of my SEO groups, a presentation was given, a very good one, about how to retain agency clients. Like I say, it was a stellar presentation. The speaker definitely knew their stuff. They had the data to back it up in terms of retention and gave some real life examples of how perilous even doing a fantastic job for a business can be. But if the client doesn't take the time to absorb all that's being done for them, even if an agency shows their work, they may not value that relationship. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with the presentation, but it did hit home and confirm that my path is not that path. The more things that were shown necessary to successfully demonstrate to an agency client that the work was being done, and to literally draw in whatever pencil, crayon, marker, whatever they had, a straight line from the work being done to the excellent results experienced by the business. All the phone calls, the new clients, so forth. Now, I kind of lost it at the point in the presentation where they showed data on a call-by-call basis. You know, the phone number, who it was, and a little transcription of the chat that was recorded. And, you know, it was easy to see the number of times where the phone wasn't even picked up, or the transcription of what the company rep had spoken to the client maybe wasn't as attentive to the caller as they should have been, like they were trying to rush him off the phone. Now, the message is, it's not just, you know, you're not just doing the SEO if you work this way. You're going to have to cut your client's meat up, nice little pieces, and feed it to them in amounts one at a time until they trust you. Now, by this point, again, in no way a response to the presentation, the quality of the presentation. It was just, I was physically nauseous. But eventually, in the end, I got to feeling grateful because of all of this, and combining that with my reaction to it, was confirmation that the path I have now chosen is the path for me. It is not required for me to be an agency in the traditional sense. And clearly, there's nothing about that business model that is in alignment with how I now wish to work, or even how I work best. I'm really there aiming for a respectful balance of power in that relationship. That's what I'm after. You know, I respect those that want to build an agency. Go for it. That model has worked for a long time. The weakness of that model, as I see, is you have to process out all your steps, and there's no one there keeping an eye out on when that method or tactic stops working. And whether we like it or not, it takes years to build the skills, not just to rank at whatever time, you know, someone starts an SEO, but to recognize along the way those techniques or methods when they stop working, and whether or not the search engine principles that they were built on changed, or if it was just something within the method. Now, let's be clear. It takes some doing to be able to do this. It's a culmination of years of work. And it's not for everybody, right? Some people, they want a job, and some people want to be, you know, self-employed. And for me, you know, I believe I've got my path mapped out, and it's just a matter of working it. And this particular path, which I started a couple of years ago, required that I get back into a learning mode, school, and obtain a license for an industry where I was invited to participate, and one that creates a high dollar revenue stream. It's all legit. There's nothing dodgy. Don't worry about it. But the cool thing is, in this particular case, in this particular situation, everything is in my hands. If I need a website done, I'm the one directing it in consultation with the principal, but I'm not having to go through like scores and scores and scores and scores of departments to get approval. And after all these years in SEO, I am at the table developing a multi-channel marketing plan. Digital is a part of it. It's in there, but it is not the only pipeline. Because if I'm on a plane and I'm flying to spend time with family, and Google throws a gasket in the works, you know, and it's done that like a lot of times where I've literally been on the plane and I land and I find everything is not as it was when I got on the plane. But in this particular case, it's not the end of the world. And I can enjoy my time with family or whatever. And there are other channels that are producing. So it's not just reliant on Google. And in this particular situation, it's like having my own business, which it is, and yet being part of a business that is already successful. So it's autonomy and community. I know that seems like they shouldn't go together, but it's kind of like my field of dreams. I have a principal who is established with a strong degree of, as he explains it, relational equity. So in a way, the only way to go from here is up. Kind of ideal. No, I said it's not kind of, it is, because I'm describing for me. Between this and my consulting on project work, I feel like I've finally broken up with my old friend, my old boyfriend, the agency model. And this did not happen overnight. And it took me getting clear on what I want to do, but that's not that easy when the ways of the SEO world are so seductive. There is a slippery slope, and it's everywhere. This morning, I did a test with an ad on Facebook. It was one that talked about one-page websites, and the cost was $7. All right, longer. I'm no daisy. So I go for it. And the ad copy reads something like this. Ditch the agency grind and build assets that work for you. I'm interested. Tired of 60 plus hours a week demanding clients and scope creep? After 8 years running my digital agency, I discovered a game changer. Simple one-page websites that connect local businesses with customers. No client drama, no team management, no endless revisions, just passive income. Within 3 months, my one-page site outperformed my biggest retainer, and now I have a portfolio generating substantial passive income with only 10 hours a week maintenance. Now, by the time you get through all the upsells, I'll give you one word. It starts, talking about everything that you now learn to create these sites and scale it and have your own, wait for it, agency. So scaling, I know it, I understand it, but what I'm about to say is not typically what a lot of people think about it. But scaling is a slippery slope. Scale works until it doesn't. However, I definitely feel like I got the value out of my $7 experiment. That's it for me this week. Thank you for being a listener. Thank you to Ahrefs for being the sponsor of this episode. Check your schedule and then check out Ahrefs Evolve SEO, Marketing a Conference. You can find it at ahrefsevolve.com. If you have any questions about today's topic, you can reach out and text your question to 512-222-3132. And Indexilla is my search engine discovery tool designed to get your pages discovered and indexed. You can find it at indexilla.io. And you can become a member of my indexing group, Crawl or No Crawl, for only $18 a month, receiving status reports to answer the question, is it me or is indexing off today? Thanks for listening, and until next week, I will see you in the SERPs.